and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who always keeps the ball in bounds. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Always, even after a bad first touch, I make up for it with the second.
That's the only thing you have in common with Son Heung-min.
Yes. And even then, I don't always keep it in bounds.
Definitely in bounds, right? There's no debate about that.
I thought they were going to check it. I thought it would go to VAR. It didn't need to be in the end because, it's very clearly kept in bounds.
So we are, of course, talking about Tottenham's 1-0 win over Manchester City in the first leg of the Champions League quarter-final.
We sure are.
That new stadium was worth all that money, I think.
Apparently. That's what it takes. You get the results when you change stadiums.
If you get a win over a Pep team and no away goal, you should spend $2 billion on that stadium.
The new stadium bounce, I guess.
The new stadium bounce.
Almost as expensive as sacking your manager every season.
Before we get to breaking down the goal, there's actually a lot more to that goal, right? It's really interesting what Eriksen does, what Fabian Delph's doing. We have to talk about the first half, where weirdly not much happened, right? There's the Aguero penalty kick. Yep. We'll get to that. But this game did not have a lot of action, and I think our working theory is that was by design by both teams.
Yes, I would say so. And I would say, to emphasize your point, that like heading into this is one where sometimes we'll watch a game sort of casually. Usually with Champions League, we'll actually watch them kind of casually. We'll rewatch some bits and then we'll record. With like U.S. national team games or bigger games, those are the ones that we try to be locked in on. But this was a game where I was coming in and I was like, I'm going to be focused. I want to know exactly what's happening because it's going to be so tactically nuanced and there's going to be so many little things to talk about. And instead, it was pretty rough. That first half was, basically two teams that I think set up to basically make sure the other team didn't score. Yep. And if they scored, like the team set up to defend, scored, then like, okay, great. Then that's great. We've got the lead. But if we don't, I think both teams were okay with 0-0.
So I think it was tactically nuanced, but just not that interesting because the nuance is that both teams did a good job with their defensive setup to stop the other team playing through.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, and I think
they were like bad golf etiquette people. No one would let the others play through.
Exactly. Well done. And I think like a good moment of like of showing that would be in the 70th minute to jump to the second half. Yeah. We saw like Harry Winks work back aggressively, slide tackle, win the ball back. He gets up and you can tell that he kind of wants to play Sissoko forward. He wants to split two City players and play in Sissoko, and Sissoko just stands there and points backwards. Yep. As if to say, we're not getting countered on, we're not getting caught out of position. Play it back and let everyone get reestablished.
And I think it's really worth drilling down on that. So what Sissoko did, like, it almost sounds cowardly when you say it. What he did was really, really smart.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Because the goal is don't get pulled out of position. Don't let the other team cut through you, because both Spurs and Man City are highly skilled at slicing through teams that have sort of been caught in transition or are out of shape. So I guess it's like both teams were determined to stay in shape. Is that fair to say?
I think so. And then I think both teams were okay with, on the few occasions they did get stretched out or did find themselves out of position, were okay with it being a more physical game.
Yeah.
There weren't as many fouls. I think 19 total, 8 fouls for Tottenham, 11 committed by Man City.
I think it's that there were a lot of noticeable fouls.
Yes.
They were like big fouls because they stopped play happening or they were kind of rough.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Well, maybe the Raheem Sterling one, is it Son's trying to pull off a 1-2 and he's getting away from Raheem Sterling, so he just grabs him and surrenders a free kick, weirdly quite close to goal. But I get it. I get why you would not want Son running through, especially given what happens when eventually he does.
It's pretty similar in the sense that it's like same rough space on the opposite side of the field. Obviously, it's the 39th minute. It's in the first half. But yeah, I think that's it. It's that they have been told, Man City have been told, do not let that front three get in behind. Do not let them exploit space. Stu Holden in the pre-match kind of coverage for BR Live, or for Turner rather, did a good breakdown of how they kind of didn't want to let Tottenham get any sort of situations out wide or in behind. And I think that's why you see that foul. They would much rather surrender a free kick and come what may, versus letting Tottenham get numbers in the box, letting them kind of go at Man City, and then Man City have to react in their own 18.
And then the other reason it looks so rough, I think, is because, as we said, both teams did a good job of not letting the other team play through. Right? Neither team could build from the back at all. When sort of Laporte or Otamendi had it, or Alderweireld or Vertonghen had it, when they were looking for passes into midfield, both teams had done a really good job of blocking off all that space. So in the end, because they didn't press the ball, right? Not in a sort of New York Red Bulls kind of let's go get the ball off you. They just blocked off the space, basically. In the end, both teams end up playing direct or long balls just to relieve the pressure. And then you get that scrappy in the air stuff. And then second balls where you get like both teams going in for big tackles for it. And the game gets rough for a minute. Then one of the teams gets possession. The other team's back in shape, and we're back where we started.
Yeah, and I was going to say...
That's the first half.
You've kind of done this full circle for me, but I was going to say the analogy I would like think fits most readily would be World War I, almost, of like you've got like sort of both both teams, like...
If that stadium was muddier, yes.
Yeah, there you go. It wasn't quite so new. Yeah, exactly. A little more bombed out. But yeah, I think it was like you had kind of both teams set up in their fairly rigid shape.
Yep.
They're not going to let anybody get through.
War of attrition.
And so even when teams would, to the second part of what you were saying, I think it's totally accurate, that even when teams would finally find a few passes through and it looked like they were going to break through, they sort of only advanced a little bit further up the field, and then they inevitably either passed it back or went long and lost the ball.
Yeah.
And so it was never really, City are camped out in Tottenham's end. Tottenham are really going at Man City right now. It kind of always felt like, they've got it. Oh, no, they've given it back. Oh, no, now they've given it back. And it never really felt like there was much in the way of like progression towards attack.
The one weird moment that broke up everything we were just talking about was when Raheem Sterling went to dribbling.
Yeah.
Doing his Eden Hazard impression.
Yep.
I should have rewatched and figured out how many people he went past, but it was a lot.
40.
Suddenly Spurs defenders looked really scared. Sterling was on the run in the box, going laterally, gets a shot away. Danny Rose slides in, leaves the arm trail in. Definitely a penalty kick, right? There's no contest there.
No, not at all. I mean, and it goes back to like the PSG Man United thing of, if you leave your feet, or if you're sliding, or even if you're in the air, if you're not really focused and you make yourself bigger, you use the arm to block it. Yeah, it's always going to be a penalty, especially with VAR.
Because if his arm hadn't been there, it was a shot on goal. Maybe I'm not sure if it was on target or not, but if his arm hadn't been there, it wouldn't have blocked the ball, right? So even though it's not intentional and he doesn't know he's doing it, he's gaining an advantage by having his arm flailing around.
But then I guess
Danny Rose.
But then I guess ball does lie.
Well, sometimes it's not about who's lying and who's telling the truth. It's about who takes a good penalty.
There we are.
And in this case, it was not Sergio Aguero taking a good penalty.
It was not.
I'm really surprised by this, right? Not to take anything away from Hugo Lloris, but not a good penalty.
I am going to guess here that this was one where they had both done their homework. And like we've only watched this a few times. We haven't like broken it down, and we haven't really heard like Lloris other than to say like, I was happy with the save. But I'm going to guess that this was Aguero trying to do I'm going to watch the goalkeeper and see which direction he goes. And I'm going to guess that Lloris had done the research to know if he stares at you and you like don't feint, he always goes one way. And so I think Lloris did a good job of not really moving. And I think the reason why I feel this way is because Aguero, there's not much disguise to this penalty. It's pretty clear if you watch it again, he's taking it to his right side. He's going to go to the keeper's left.
His hips open up that way pretty early, right?
Yeah. And there's not a lot of power behind it. It's in the probably worst like height that you can hit a penalty.
It's mid-height and mid-width.
Exactly.
Right? It's definitely not going in the side netting, and it's definitely not going top or bottom. Yeah, mid-height, mid-width.
And so I think that's why I default to, I think Aguero thought, okay, I've looked him off. He's going to go the wrong way. I can just pass this one into like the kind of right side, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Lloris instead anticipates and makes that save.
I guess so. It's a mix of telegraphing it to him and then also technically not doing it correctly, right? Because you can if the goalkeeper can know which way you're going. If you hit it fast enough and firm enough with a bit of bend into the side netting, they still can't get there sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So he just had neither thing going for him, did Sergio Aguero.
I mean, ask Troy Deeney how to hit a penalty. But I also
do not want to talk to Troy Deeney right now.
Yeah, that's fine. I know you don't. I'm sorry, buddy. But at least I got to bring that
Our
up to make
accents are
you
too
sad.
similar. So.
But I would say, though, that like I also wonder if I know Sergio Aguero is a professional. He's played in
he gets paid.
Limitless games. He has tons of experience, but he, I would say, of everybody on the field, had the worst game of any of the 22 players that started.
He's badly suited, right? Because if there's no service coming through the middle to get into feet or to get balls in behind, and it's just like Man City having to, as Spurs did, go long, he's definitely much less suited to that game than, say, Harry Kane is.
Absolutely.
Right?
And
in fact, Man City don't have a target striker, do they? Like Jesus is not great like a hold-up in the air thing. They're not designed to do that.
Put Vincent Kompany in there. Let him do stuff. But so I do think, though, that penalty really took the wind out of his sails that much more, because now it's an obvious opportunity in a game where there were not going to be many obvious opportunities. Yeah. And again, I think you could see that in a lot of the shooting chances, that you would maybe get someone in a position where he's kind of got a shot, and then he would hit it as hard as he could, as fast as he could. Yeah. Because I think every
Dele Alli's
player...
volley over the bar
exactly.
was similar.
Yeah, I think there was an awareness of, if I don't take this now, I'm probably not going to get a second chance. Chances are going to be at a premium. So to miss a penalty, I really think that knocked Aguero out of this game a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to get to the actual goal?
Sure.
So, because second half was really more of the same.
Actually, before we jump to the second half, I do want to say there was one player who I think was pretty fortunate to be on the field for the entirety of this game.
Is it Fernandinho?
It is Fernandinho.
Yeah.
Your pronunciation probably better on that one. But not even just for the Harry Kane incident, which I do want to talk about, but there were so many moments where he seems to excel at the kind of off-the-ball foul after the ball is gone, or even when the ball's still there, just a little too aggressive, but he always looks like, he just barely was out of control. Oh, he just barely hit him. But when it keeps happening over and over and over again, I'm amazed that he got out of this game without getting a card, checks his notes, doesn't see a card. And then, there's the Harry Kane incident.
40th minute.
Yeah, where...
I'm going to double down and say they both should have been sent off because Kane retaliates with a similar elbow. So if you haven't seen this, it is they both go up for the ball. I think Fernandinho they end up falling on top of one another.
Fernandinho falls on top of Harry Kane because he elbows him in the head.
And then he kind of deliberately falls on top. Yes. I feel like he could have got out of his way, but deliberately went down like knee or thigh first onto Harry Kane. And then after he's landed, I think almost fakes it as if, this was definitely part of just my natural jumping motion. Elbows Harry Kane on the head, right? And then Kane retaliates with an elbow as well.
But even before Harry Kane retaliates, the thing, I think even then Harry Kane might just think like, it's a collision, we're falling down, that happened. And it was clever enough from Fernandinho that you might have thought, he didn't mean to do that. Yeah. The thing where I'm like, no, he knows exactly what he's doing is when he stands up, he uses the back of Harry Kane's head / his neck to get back up. Like he pushes it into the ground. And that is, I think, the thing that makes Harry Kane very frustrated because now he's basically being held down and fouled, and there's no call coming. And so I think that's where that retaliation comes about.
Why were there no cards for this? Because we have review, we have VAR, we have video assistant referees to review it. Is it that maybe they thought, they both elbowed each other, maybe we just let this slide?
I think so. I also think that
that's not how it should work, right?
No, it's not.
You're not supposed to elbow people in the head, so they both should have been sent off. Yeah? Spurs fans will hate this, by the way, but you're not supposed to retaliate even when you're the victim.
I do think that maybe if the referee says, I saw that happen as it happened, and it wasn't intentional by Fernandinho, I don't think then that they can go to VAR because it has to be something that the referee has missed or did not see. So when he gets that notification in his ear of...
Can't it just be a clear and obvious error?
Well, that's
maybe the ref saw it but made a mistake in not calling it?
I think he has to acknowledge it's an error for it to go to VAR. I could be wrong there, but I think...
Did you think VAR was in his ear being like, hey, and he was just like pretending he couldn't hear them?
No, I think what can happen on the occasion when the referee waves it off without going to look at the screen is they say like, I saw that, I didn't think it was too bad, and then he hasn't missed it. It's not a clear error because he said like, no, I saw the contact there. So I think that may be part of it, and then I think it may have just been like, it was physical, it's a physical game, and so I understand why Harry Kane got a little bit frustrated. He didn't land a punch, he didn't land an elbow, so maybe just a quick talking to, and then I'll send them on their way. But that felt like a thing that Fernandinho was doing throughout this game. So again, I'm shocked he didn't at least get a yellow.
And maybe it's that neither of them actually like struck a vicious elbow. Both of them were just like contact, but not like kapow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
that was the best word I could think of.
And I wonder then if, but before we get to the goal again, to talk about the rest of Harry Kane's game was abbreviated because he comes off with injury in the second half.
56 minute, he gets injured,
And we were both kind of surprised watching it by how annoyed Mauricio Pochettino was that there was no call given, there was no card given, and that he kept kind of talking to Fabian Delph. Even like 5 minutes afterwards, he was still kind of running his mouth at Fabian Delph. And I wonder if that was partially because he thought there was a foul here, and partially because he was still frustrated by the Fernandinho thing or by frustrated some of the treatment. And so then it looks like they're just targeting Harry Kane, even though in this one, I would say Harry Kane, again, Spurs not going to like this, or Spurs fans not going to like this, kind of at fault for this one, because it's Fabian Delph swinging through and Harry Kane trying to block.
Delph's played the ball at the line, Kane comes sliding over, and it's a little bit late, first of all, and then rolls his own ankle by making contact with Delph on the follow-through, right? That's unfortunately what happens, and he goes down the tunnel one-legged.
He does, and
we haven't had, because we're recording this so soon after the game, we haven't heard like how bad it is, but it was bad enough for him to miss the entire last 35 minutes or so.
It was, and so it takes Spurs about 3 minutes to get his replacement on. Harry Kane limps off, as you said. Lucas Moura comes on, and I actually think this ended up being a good thing for Tottenham because I think Lucas Moura was very up and ready to go, and especially against a Man City team that at this point had been playing for more than an hour of soccer and were probably a little bit mentally fatigued by having to do all of their different assignments and be very rigid in that defensive approach. That I think him kind of going at them at full speed and trying to be a little bit clever and a little bit creative, it caused problems in the same way that Raheem Sterling caused problems for Tottenham.
I agree. Because really Spurs only had Son who could do that. Right? Like Eriksen's not going to dribble at you so much. Harry Kane will do, but in his slow way where he's looking to pick out a pass. Dele Alli, for all his I really love Dele Alli, but he's not dribbling through five people kind of guy, right? He's a more crafty sort of guile making things happen. So to have two guys who can run at you at pace in such a tight game maybe is more effective.
And Moura effective. There you go.
Oh.
And then also it's Lucas Moura who collects the 50-50 ball in the 78th minute that starts the attack that leads to the Son goal.
Let's talk about that Son goal. Okay. There's a lot going on there.
There sure is.
I want to start weirdly with after the Lucas Moura 50-50 win, Dele Alli pulls off.
It's not weird at all. It's very good.
It's a very nice drag back, right? I think it's Fernandinho who's going in on him, and Dele Alli just does here's the ball, take a look, I'm going to take it away. And drag back and pass
and
to Eriksen, right?
Yeah, and he drags it back, and it stands out because, like, juxtapose that with what we were just talking about in this game where it felt like, especially Tottenham, were kind of clutching at chances, I guess is the phrase that I've heard before, where it's just sort of like, oh, there's a shot on, take it. Oh, there's a pass on, take it as quickly as you can.
Even Eriksen was like blasting balls into a crowded box full of bodies,
And so that Dele Alli pulls it back. I think maybe his hand is forced a little bit, but because he pulls it back...
Well, he wanted the nutmeg, obviously.
Yeah, that's probably true. But it slows things down. Then he lays it off to Christian Eriksen, and I think it's Christian Eriksen's, I'm going to say, awareness that really makes this goal happen, because when that ball goes to Eriksen, we've seen it 1,000 times. The obvious play here is it goes from Dele Alli on Eriksen's left, so that ball comes over to Eriksen. The easiest thing is take a touch to open up, and then you take your second touch and you play it wide to Son, who's out wide.
And in wide open, right? Because Man City's back four is in sort of a tight four. So Fabian Delph is very much tucked in. Son is definitely easily could receive that pass, right?
But I think if that happens, the other thing you'll see then is Fabian Delph, who's in, I would say, given what Man City were trying to do, he is in the correct position. And so if that ball goes wide, he's able to kind of get out wide and at least put pressure on Son. It inevitably is going to be a cross into the box. Maybe somebody gets on the end of it, but it's a cross into the box.
The big thing is Man City could just hold shape, right? Which is what they've done, and Spurs have done very well throughout the game, is just hold their defensive shape, don't let anyone through. Which is why, and this is what you're driving at, right? It's key that Eriksen didn't play the smart, simple, obvious pass. He went next level.
He did. He takes that ball back inside in the direction of Dele Alli, where the ball had come from.
Isn't Danny Rose out wide left as well? So he's maybe got... he can fake that the option is, I'm going to play it wide left.
And I think City are maybe aware of that. So that entire City defense takes 2 steps to their right, I would say, Fabian Delph included. So now he's come more central. So then when Christian Eriksen does play that ball, and we think that maybe Fabian Delph is trying to put himself in a position to cut out the through ball, the kind of just passed ball into the box, but instead it's a lofted ball from Christian Eriksen that Fabian Delph is then going to struggle to get in a position to handle, so that by the time the ball is like already in the air, Fabian Delph has gotten back to the spot he was in before Christian Eriksen went inside. So that little moment from Christian Eriksen pulls Fabian Delph the needed amount out of position.
Exactly. And then Son is in a great position to like basically first time strike or take a touch and strike. It's a great ball from Eriksen. He has a horrible touch.
He does.
It's a horrible touch from Son Heung-min.
But I think that shows you how important that little movement from Christian Eriksen is, because going back to what I said previously, that if that ball just goes wide to Son right away, Fabian Delph, even if you don't think he's the best fullback in the world...
shuffle over, close down, job done.
Exactly. Job done. But I think because he's caught out here and because he's scrambling, even though Son takes that bad touch, he's now trying to get back into the right position. And I think because he's scrambling, when that ball looks like it's gone out of bounds, he stops and puts his hand in the air.
That's the key mistake,
That's the key mistake, because then when it's not called, he then tries to make a play on the ball. He tries to close that space.
He lunges, right?
And he over-pursues. And because he lunges, he dives in, he gets beat by Son, and now it's an easier chance for Son to take.
Are you saying Delph's trying to make up for the ground he's lost when he stood there with his arm in the air?
Yes, exactly.
And that's the error, right? That's what Son exploits.
Exactly.
And then Son fires it under Ederson.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think we watched this a bunch to see if Ederson could have done better. He probably could have, but I think the issue here is that he's come off his line because he thinks this ball is going to go out of bounds, or he thinks maybe Son will take a touch and then he can collect the ball. But because Son controls it the way he does and kind of uses the outside of his foot to take it away from Ederson, now Ederson has to backpedal to get onto his near post. And I think he's just a little bit slow. He's not quite sure of his positioning. And so I think when he finally does get set, the shot is already coming in.
It's a shame because he made the right choice, right? He came out to pressure Son, and then he made the correct decision to be like, okay, now it's time to backtrack. And he was almost in the right spot, but I think he just lost his ground a little bit, or lost his sense of where he was a little bit.
Exactly. And he had been, it looked like injured earlier in the game. He came out, collected a cross, came down hard on his left hip.
Otamendi hit him in the air.
Yep. And we did see him showing signs of discomfort as the game went on, but we watched again here, you don't see any level of discomfort. You don't see him sort of awkwardly going down. He just kind of, I think, tries to make the play and just can't react to it in time.
Oh, so there we go. 1-0 to Spurs. There's 2 things I want to talk about before we move on from this game. The first is just praising some Spurs performances. The guy, we mentioned him once, but the guy we were both really impressed with was Sissoko, right? Moussa Sissoko, no? Have I got
Moussa
Sissoko, excuse me. Moussa Sissoko used to play for Liverpool, right?
There's a lot of Sissokos.
Moussa Sissoko playing defensive midfield for Spurs. Harry Winks also good, but I think Sissoko really, really caught the eye for... I don't know, maybe list the reasons. I think decision-making was a big thing we were big on, right? The thing you talked about earlier where he was like, no, I'm not going forward. We're not getting pulled out of shape. You pass that ball backwards, Harry Winks. Let's do what we're here to do.
Yeah. And then I think he does what I would call like the Paul Pogba approach to defending, where he's so big and like physically intimidating that Sissoko will just step across. He did it to, I think it was Raheem Sterling, who he kind of just steps across and then he's made a play on the ball, but there's no way that player is going through him, and then he's won the ball.
I love it. It's my favorite thing to watch defenders just insert themselves between the man and the ball, and then you've just separated the guy from the ball. It's so simple and perfect. What was the other thing we know? Oh, the other thing we noted was his double teaming decisions were just on point the whole time.
Absolutely. Yeah, that he would. And I think the difference between, sometimes we're not big fans of double teams, but that's when the kind of player goes over to theoretically help, but they're not really helping.
Because you leave a man to do it, right?
When Sissoko went for the double team, he went for the double team. And it was sort of like, you take it from one side, I'll take it from the other. We're going to like win that ball back aggressively, or at least make the player go back in another direction. And it worked pretty often.
Oh, because he gets there quickly as well, right? Because you're susceptible before, like when you leave your man and before you get to the guy you're double teaming, that's when there's a moment of danger, right?
Yeah.
But if you fully commit to it, like Robert De Niro, then you get there quick and you shut everything down.
Yeah.
Brilliant, Sissoko.
But I also think to that point that Sissoko, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I think Sissoko is probably a confidence player. And that there were times early in the season when Spurs fans, when he was first signed, Spurs fans weren't too excited. I think there have been times this season when they felt like, why is he still here? Why is he starting? But I think he's one who, if the manager backs him and if he gets those reps, he really grows into the game and grows into it from a confidence standpoint. So much so that in the first half, he had that slide tackle in the box that could have been easily a penalty. But I think because he backs himself to do it, because he doesn't have that moment of, as you slide in, oh, I hope I don't make a foul, and then you're not quite 100% focused on that slide tackle. You're focused on, I hope I don't make a mistake. You almost always make a mistake. But if you're just like, I'm winning this ball, he slides through and wins that ball. And it is a confident defensive play that was absolutely necessary in that moment.
The other thing I want to talk about is Pep Guardiola's team selection. Because when they're 1-0 down, the big sort of, his big push in the 88th minute, kind of late, is let's bring on Kevin De Bruyne and Leroy Sané, right? And then the obvious, and they make a couple of chances down the left, right? I think Trippier really puts a stop to one of them. The obvious question is, why not from the start?
I think it's because that they were trying to do the more defensive approach. At times it looked like they were doing the 4-4-2. Sometimes it was a 4-2-3-1, but it was always focused on like keeping defensive shape, getting possession back, and then I think being kind of slow in possession. They weren't trying to counterattack rapidly and maybe get caught out.
Oh, that's De Bruyne's speciality, right?
Yeah, and so I think
the latter, not the former.
Yeah, and so I think they wanted more so of like, you look at that midfield that they had of Gundogan,
Fernandinho,
thank you very
David
much.
Silva.
Thank you very much for filling those out together. Like, that's not the paciest of midfields. I think the idea was, we'll get possession, we'll keep our shape, we're not going to overcommit. And I think that that's why you don't have players like Gabriel Jesus and Leroy Sané especially starting, because maybe he's looking at them more as those late game impact substitutions who can really stretch out a tired Tottenham defense.
And maybe we see them in the second leg
that would
when
be my guess.
City kind of have to go for it.
Yep.
Yeah. So Guardiola's selection makes sense then, but it's just the result was bad.
Yeah, I think with City, anytime they have the bench they have of like the names we've already mentioned, I think Vincent Kompany on the bench as well. It just looks like, oh my gosh, he's left so much talent on the bench. What is he doing?
But he always is going to do that, right?
Yeah, but he always is going to do that. The other one that I think was somewhat of a head scratcher was Fabian Delph going to left back, and I think again Stu Holden's pregame stuff pointing out that it seemed like his goal was to slide into the middle and be another like kind of central midfielder.
Bit of Behelsery kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
I think they just wanted to block opportunities, like counterattacking opportunities through the middle, and I think that's why he went in there. So I saw all that consternation about the lineup. It didn't seem that shocking to me. It wasn't. I mean, we have seen Pep Guardiola try to go man-to-man in a Champions League, I think, semifinal when it was Bayern versus Barca, I think it was. Like, we've seen some crazy stuff. So maybe it's just that he's raised the bar on his level of tinkering so high that this didn't seem that egregious.
Or maybe that's when he went too aggressive, too offensive. This is he went maybe too conservative.
That could be.
In hindsight.
That is that, I think, if you're going to criticize him for anything, it's not necessarily the personnel he selected, but maybe the overall approach of being just a bit too conservative, because if it had worked, it's the frustrating thing about soccer. If it had worked and this game finishes 0-0, even if maybe someone gets that chance but it's saved, his game plan worked. But because it didn't,
Aguero scores that penalty and they get out of Tottenham's new stadium with a 1-0 win.
Exactly. Yeah. Then it works. But because it didn't. And that's the way it goes.
So there we go. Tottenham 1, Manchester City 0. Today's show is sponsored by Dollar Shave Club.
You are correct, my friend. Dollar Shave Club, you know them. We love them because we've used their products. I went away this weekend. I packed only Dollar Shave Club products, pretty much, and I really enjoyed it.
Was it a sponsored trip?
Kind of. It felt that way because I had the Dollar Shave Club. I think it's a Doc kit. I can't remember if it's DOP or Doc. I always get this wrong. But like, it had the little carrying bag. I had all the Dollar Shave Club stuff in it. Yeah. So it was nice to look, for once in my life, like a very put-together adult because I had all matching and pretty products.
So what products did you have?
I had the Dollar Shave Club. I had the toothbrush, the toothpaste, the Super Ba toothpaste and the lovely toothbrush that I've talked about many times. But I also brought the shampoo and conditioner, which I think we were staying at a fairly like fancy Airbnb in terms of there was lots of different like products around for people to use. And I do think I was with my in-laws.
The Airbnb hosts were out to impress.
They were, I believe. I think a lot of they raise goats. So there's a lot of like goat milk products.
Interesting.
And so I think my in-laws thought that the shampoo and conditioner that I had packed was one of those sort of specialty products.
Oh,
and they all used it. They all liked it because you could smell the sage and black pepper in the air.
Oh, lovely. So it fit in with the artisanal
I would
products.
say so, yeah.
Great. If you want to sample these products for yourself, you can get the shower starter kit.
There you go.
Go to
I like that one.
dollarshaveclub.com/TSS. You can get the shower starter kit for just $5. In that starter kit, you will get the shampoo, the sage and black pepper that Taylor just mentioned, that was confused for artisanal products on Taylor's trip. There's also the facial cleanse. Can you remember the ingredients in the daily facial cleanser?
I can remember that it's a daily facial cleanser. Is ginger in there?
It is. It is citrus and Hawaiian ginger.
Okay, excuse me.
Hawaiian ginger.
Wow.
That's how fancy it is.
I apologize.
And then there's a hydrating body cleanser, which is basically, unless I'm doing this wrong, that's what you wash the rest of your body with in the shower, right?
And if you want to further go with that one, it also hydrates your body, I believe.
Well, it uses calming amber and lavender. Calming amber and lavender in the hydrating body cleanser.
And I enjoyed it all. And then obviously they gave us a lot of hair products as well. I used those to style my hair. So I looked put together, which is always a nice thing. My wife complimented that I looked very put together. So if you would like to get equally nice compliments, you can do so by using Dollar Shave Club products. And right now, you can get a Dollar Shave Club starter set for just $5 each. They've got a shower set.
That's the one we just talked about.
Toothpaste and toothbrush set, and their famous shave butter and razor. We never talked too much about their shave products, but I have enjoyed them the few times I've used them because I have the big beard. I've enjoyed them. They did make my skin feel silky smooth, and I tend to get like irritation.
It's the shave butter. It's the shave butter doing it for you.
And I tend to get like razor bumps on like my neck, on the sides of my neck when I shave because that's where I'm very sensitive. But I get them very seldomly when I use the Dollar Shave Club products.
That's good to know. And if you want to get any of these starter sets for just $5, again, we mentioned the shower set just $5. Go to dollarshaveclub.com/TSS. After your starter set, products will ship at the regular price. It's dollarshaveclub.com/TSS. Link will, of course, be in the show notes. It's also on our advertisers page, totalsoccershow.com/advertisers.
Thank you very much to Dollar Shave Club for sponsoring today's episode. Now, Daryl Grove, shall we talk about today's other Champions League action? Liverpool hosting FC Porto.
Is it really hosting when you treat them like that?
No. I mean, it's not nice hosting. It's allowing to play in their stadium.
It's not like the Airbnb you were in.
Not so much, no.
They didn't put any Dollar Shave Club products out. They more sliced through Porto's defence.
Yeah, they didn't have like narrow hallways that opened up into massive amounts of space. No, that didn't happen either.
I think Porto did that.
They did.
All right, so 2-0 to Liverpool. I guess very belated spoiler alert on this show. But you listen to a Champions League review, there's going to be the score, right?
Yes, you would assume, yes.
2-0 to Liverpool, goals in the 5th minute by Naby Keita, with a little help from Oliver.
A little help, yeah.
Porto. And then Roberto Firmino in the 28th minute is what my notes say.
I believe you are correct. My friend.
All right, before we get into maybe the goals, because there's quite a lot to talk about with both goals. They're quite interesting goals.
It was
in both
26 minutes.
Cases. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Let's talk tactics.
Sure.
And weirdly, I specifically want to talk Porto's tactics because we don't watch a lot of Porto.
That would be why you said weirdly, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
yes.
But we do know from looking back that Porto normally play in a back four. They went with what maybe they would call a back three, but was very more realistically a back five.
Yeah, absolutely.
5-4-1 was how Porto defended in this game.
And even stranger, I would say, to some extent, is that they usually go a 4-4-2 is what I saw Porto in most of their recent Cup and League games. So for them to be in a 5-3-2 is a little bit, or not even that, a 5-2-3, excuse me, was
5-2-3 when attacking.
Yeah.
I think they would call it a 3-4-3 actually, because they thought, like, say, Tecatito would not really play full right back. He would be getting forward. But we saw him mostly just like as a right back in a back five.
They can call it what they want. I'm going to call it bad because it wasn't just that they went to a back four, and I think that was necessitated because Pepe and Hector Herrera were both suspended from this game. So Herrera likely would have been starting alongside Danilo Pereira as the other central midfielder,
who looked kind of good, right? Yeah. He put up a battling display as a defensive midfielder.
He sure did.
At least,
that was good. And then Pepe would have been a starting center back, obviously. And I think just looking at what they've been doing, it's usually Pepe and it's usually his partner Felipe. And that's
Militao surely always plays, right?
Oh, yes,
if he's good enough to get signed by Real Madrid for 50 million euros, he's good enough to start for Porto.
But I think they usually don't. That's basically it. They don't like a lot of rotation. It's going to be those two center backs. And so I think because you're missing Pepe, it in their minds, or at least in Sergio Conceição's mind, was we need to get more defensive presence back. We want more numbers behind the ball, especially with no Hector Herrera. We want to make sure we have that kind of cover. And as a result, I think their plan was to be very, very narrow, keep that back five as a back five. But
which is not normal, right? Normally a back five, your wing backs pop out and go challenge. You don't have all five stay together, like almost the width of the penalty area, five across.
You say almost, they were almost to the width of the penalty area. Regularly, they were inside the 18. Like they were inside those dimensions, which shows you how compact they were, which I think works if you think the biggest threat is Liverpool coming straight through the middle. But it's not. It's Liverpool coming wide, and they did that regularly and caused huge problems as a result.
Well, I want to try and guess what Sergio Conceição was thinking of. I'm thinking he thinks we get that tight five, and there's no way that the front three of Mane, Firmino, Salah can carve their way through us.
Yeah.
And one is not right, because it kind of did happen. But yeah, it happened because of Liverpool's width, which I think is what you were getting at, right?
Yeah, because
not provided by Mane and Salah.
No, it was not. Instead, on occasion it was, but usually that was the overload when they would send one of those wingers out wide, but it was more often the fullbacks.
Yes.
And this was an interesting wrinkle from Liverpool. At least to me it was a wrinkle. I don't think I've seen them do this too often. But they had the 4-3-3, the usual shape.
Yep.
It was Fabinho sitting deepest in the middle, and then it was Jordan Henderson on the right and Naby Keita on the left. When Liverpool would get the ball, at times it looked like they were in a back three because Virgil van Dijk would stay very central. Dejan Lovren would go out to like right center back side, and Naby Keita would drop in as almost a left center back.
Yeah,
and
which is confusing, right? If you're Porto, you're like, what's he doing there?
And especially if you're
this is suspicious.
Especially if you're trying to track. And I think there were moments when they tried to track Naby Keita out of midfield, and then suddenly they're basically marking a center back, and that's not very effective. But what that formation did was you keep those three sort of central together. You have Fabinho ahead of them as sort of the link-up player.
Yeah.
But then you send your two fullbacks very far forward, and now suddenly it's almost a 3-1-4, and then players ahead, obviously. But because of that, it pinned Porto back and gave Liverpool lots of space, and then the mobility of having those players wide, but players kind of interchanging and dropping in. I think it basically forced Porto to be narrow and then simultaneously stretched on occasion.
Yeah, so it's Milner wide left, Trent Alexander-Arnold wide right.
Yep.
Porto's still determined to have the tight back five. So what ends up happening is the four midfielders, I know that some of them were forwards, but when they defended, there was a four midfield. They ended up getting pulled wide, right? Which all of a sudden you're sort of all over the place, right? And then Firmino starts wandering away from the central area. One of the centre backs will go with him. That creates a hole. So Liverpool were able to cause all sorts of confusion.
Yeah, and strangely, the goals are good examples of this, but I feel like the best example is the 34th minute, the Firmino miss at the back post where he puts it over. And if you go back and watch, it's Naby Keita gets the ball. He's a
left centre back.
Yeah, but he drives forward a little bit, and that kind of pulls Porto out. But I think they're so scared about Mohamed Salah and Roberto Firmino and the threats that they present that two different players mark Mohamed Salah as he runs from kind of right inside, towards the center. Firmino drops in, and one of the center backs goes with him. And suddenly, instead of being a back five, it's really this weird sort of
There's no number for it.
No, there's no number.
It's a bunch of dudes.
But there's also a good 30 yards of space out on the right side channel, which is a problem if you're not a professional soccer player and can't play a soccer ball. But if you're Naby Keita, you can play a ball into the channel, and that's exactly what he does. And there's overlapping runners, and then Porto are all over the place. Firmino can't finish, but it shows you just sort of how at 6s and 7s Porto were, to use one of your people's terms.
My people. Okay, should we talk about the goals?
Sure.
So 5th minute, ball is in the back of the net. It's Naby Keita's shot. It is Oliver, who is with the desperate slide tackle that deflects it past his own goalkeeper, who, by the way, if you recognise that man in goal for Porto, was Iker Casillas.
Yep, I'm familiar with him.
Oh, let's play a quick game. How old is Iker Casillas?
400.
I've got the lineup for I'm going to click it.
I don't know. I think he's probably, I'm going to say 41.
All right.
No, because I think Buffon's older, but he's around there, I'm going to say.
Iker Casillas is, according to Google, a Spanish soccer player. Thank you. 6'1".
You thought this was going to be faster, didn't you?
37.
Wow.
Madrid got rid of him early.
They did. I guess I just think of him as, I think it's because we talked about this off air, about why he is, I think the commentator said before the game that he's the most capped player.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if he meant just among the players in this Liverpool-Porto game or of all time in terms of Champions League games, but either way, he's played a lot of games.
Yeah, but I think it's because he's played for so long at such a high level that I think of him as an older player when in reality he started very young.
Yeah.
So apologies to Iker Casillas for getting his age wrong. But again, he may be 56 and I don't know. But I also want to highlight for this first goal, the sort of duality of Liverpool that Fabinho gets the ball in the middle. And there were moments when we thought Fabinho was a little too slow, a little too sort of not lazy, but like just sort of confident on the ball, but in a way that maybe he wasn't necessarily backing up with his play.
Yeah, like nobody can possibly tackle the great Fabinho.
Yeah, and so he and so he turns and does get tackled.
He tries two little lifts over players. Right?
Exactly.
First one works. Second one, I think it's Danilo, again, steps into him and wins that ball.
And so there's those moments of like, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that, and then James Milner just runs through and smashes it wide into the channel. Like, no. We don't need to be clever here. We need to be direct.
So this is the one example. Remember, I'm always about like your left back should be left-footed, your right back should be right-footed, and even your left side centre back should be left-footed. James Milner playing left back, obviously filling in. James Milner, filling in for Robertson, basically, right? This is the one time where having a right-footed left back was really helpful. Yeah, because Milner could just one time hit that ball out swinging to the left wing for who's down there? Sadio Mane?
Sadio Mane, exactly.
For Sadio Mane.
And this is where you can be clever. This is where you can afford to be clever. Maybe not in the middle when you are the like lone central midfielder and that risks a counterattack, which is I think why Virgil van Dijk was kind of consistently directly behind Fabinho, just in case that did happen. But here, once you play that ball into Sadio Mane, now you can afford to have a little bit of attacking flair because number one, you've exploited that narrowness of Porto with that ball wide, so now they're trying to transition over, but also because the fluidity coming through the middle, you can then afford to kind of like do a little trick, do a little pass. And also because you have the familiarity, and that's another key component here, is that Roberto Firmino makes a run towards the center, and then literally as soon as he sort of shows that he's going to come towards Sadio Mane plays that ball.
It's even like maybe Firmino's first step. It may be even before. Maybe that telepathic, right?
And it's a great ball from Sadio Mane. You spotted this one. I think it's outside of the foot. He kind of lifts it between Tecatito and Maxi Pereira.
So the right wing back and the right centre back. Yeah.
And so because of the directness of the Milner ball and then the cleverness...
Failed double team.
Yes, exactly. But the cleverness of the Milner ball and the directness of the Milner ball combined with the cleverness of Sadio Mane, now in two quick little sequences, they've completely taken a number of Porto players out of the equation, but also caused panic. Because as I said before, I think Porto were very aware of the threat of Firmino and the mobility of Firmino. And so I think they were overly focused on making sure he was always marked. Yeah. More on that in the second goal.
Which is hard because he moves so much, right?
Yeah. But here, I think then it is Felipe who comes wide because Pereira has already been pulled out. And this is where, as you alluded to earlier, Oliver Torres, I think it is.
Number 10?
Yes, sorry. There's Alex Tellez and Oliver Torres.
Yeah, Oliver Torres is the number 10 in midfield.
Thank you. I'm going to stick with Oliver.
We noticed doesn't usually start for Porto, right? I think he's trying to do
Oliver here, right?
Yeah, he's trying to do Hector Herrera's job, and only Hector Herrera can do Hector Herrera's job.
And compare this with Sissoko.
I really mean that, but
that's fair, and I think you're right. But compare this with Sissoko and what we talked about with him kind of going all in on the double team. Here, Oliver splits the difference, and that's where you get into trouble because he's trying to pay attention to Naby Keita while also trying to kind of cut out options for Firmino, but instead he gets caught in between and doesn't really do either. So Firmino is able to turn, play the ball back to Naby Keita. Now Oliver panics, tries to put in that tackle, goes sliding in, and it's that slide tackle that deflects and allows the goal to happen.
It's trying to make up the ground that he lost by going over to try and cover Firmino.
It's why if you're going to double team, you've got to really know that it's the time to double team, and then you've got to go all in. Can't be 50-50 or it ends up with Liverpool taking the lead. Regardless of who you're playing, it ends up with Liverpool taking the lead. I'm not sure how that works.
So 1-0 Liverpool after 5 minutes, 2-0 after what I now know is 26 minutes, according to Taylor Rockwell.
Yeah, and it starts with, or not starts with, but it is a 23-ish pass sequence. I say that because Porto kind of get a touch to the ball at one point, but it still just redirects it
half tackle, right?
Sort of into the path of another Liverpool player.
I don't know who that Porto defender was that got a toe in, but it was 23andMe. Not sponsoring today's show. We actually used to be sponsored by Ancestry.com, but 23 and that guy, they got a toe in.
There we go. But it's Liverpool. It's in the hindsight of it being a goal, it feels if you go back and watch it like it's just Liverpool probing. Yeah. And it's Liverpool moving the ball from left to right, sometimes moving it forward, then dropping it back, then moving it forward centrally, then dropping it back, then moving it wide. And all the while, really, I think, just trying to pull Porto out of position. And it shows you how well-drilled Liverpool are, how good Liverpool are, that really a couple moments of one player over pursues by a yard or two. One player steps too far wide. That's all it takes for Liverpool to be in.
Yep. And again, Porto do the back five, which I'm sure looked good on Sergio Conceição's chalkboard. Didn't look so good on the field.
Not so much.
It's far too narrow, and this is what allows Trent Alexander-Arnold to get in behind, right?
Yeah, because he is standing on the touchline as he makes this run.
Wide right.
But he's completely wide open and completely unmarked. And then even if Alex Telles is able to slide over and help out in some way, it's still going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold running at full steam. And so really it ends up being, I think it is Marega who drops in and tries to help out defensively for Porto. That's their left winger. But we're still talking about players who really aren't as sound when it comes to defensive positioning. And because it's a good ball from James Milner to a wide open space, Porto kind of pulled out. And then it's a great ball from Trent Alexander-Arnold. I leaned back. I may have gone off mic to emphasize just how good that ball was.
Don't they play it like not out wide, but in sort of in a channel between a centre-back and left-back? Who's the guy who hits the pass?
Jordan Henderson.
It's Henderson. Oh, Henderson. Finally getting some credit, hopefully.
Yeah, check notes, definitely Henderson.
Yeah.
And I think the other issue here, again, with Porto being focused on that front three because they're so famously good, is that multiple players are focused on not letting Mohamed Salah get the ball and definitely not letting him turn.
To be fair, they succeeded.
Yeah, but they did. But because they're so focused on him, he's standing there. And for a second, it looks like maybe he dummies the ball or maybe he lets the ball go past him. No, I think it's just the Porto players are so focused on him, they don't notice the gap that Jordan Henderson plays it into.
Presence. Yeah, so Alexander, I find it hard to say, TAA runs in, basically cuts in from the right to be on the end of this through ball from Jordan Henderson. Firmino has lost his mark. How has Firmino lost his mark for when Trent basically squares it?
Yeah, so this is one where I say like they're so focused on tracking Firmino, but then they lose him at the exact wrong moment. It's Maxi Pereira, I believe, because Firmino has dropped all the way in and now is making the attacking run to get on the end of the ball. Maxi Pereira picks him up, but I think simultaneously is trying to hold the offside line.
That's it. That's how he loses him, isn't it? He sees him, but he stands for at least he committed to the offside trap.
And it would be harsh to say like this is Maxi Pereira having like a defensive breakdown or anything. He does everything he does is sort of like technically correct, but it ends up in the wrong decision because he sees Firmino coming, so he tries to get goal side to make sure he can make a play on the ball. But because of that, he kind of loses track of Firmino. Then he tries to hold the line because he doesn't want to be the one to drop 2 yards deep, and now Firmino's wide open for the split. But because he does that, Firmino times his run very well and holds it very well, and then it's a good ball from Trent Alexander-Arnold. So even though it's two technically good decisions from Maxi Pereira, the defender, it ends up with Roberto Firmino wide open at the back post.
Again, I think it's just because the shape was wrong. The narrow 5 defenders is just wrong, and eventually someone's going to get in behind you.
And you're absolutely right, and we didn't talk about this, but I'm realizing now the other problem is that because they're so narrow and that ball goes to Trent Alexander-Arnold, now they're transitioning Porto. And if you're Roberto Firmino, I think in another situation, he can't just 100% focus on am I onside? He's got to focus on where's the defender? How do I get a little bit of space? How do I find some time? But because suddenly Trent Alexander-Arnold is in the 18 at full speed,
behind the defenders,
everybody slides over. And now all Firmino has to do is make sure that he is level with the ball when it's played, which he is. It doesn't look like he is, but the angle is weird.
Oh, we rewatched it enough to make sure, right? But if it's worth noting, just because you're in behind the defense, offside is still a thing, right? If the ball is played forward and you receive it and you're ahead of the ball, when it's played, you're offside. So he does really well to keep track of not being ahead of the ball.
Yeah, but I think it's a harder task if he has someone defending him. But because of that little run, and because Porto switch off for a second, and because of the panic from Trent Alexander-Arnold, now all he has to do is focus 100% on stay level with the ball. Yeah, and then he maybe needs 1% of his brain to finish that one because it's just a nice instep.
This feels like a classic scenario where Roberto Firmino would do the no-look finish. I've seen it, and I feel like I would have noticed it if he did it.
Except that if there were one manager aside from Pep Guardiola who I think would murder a player for missing an open goal by trying to no-look it, it's Jurgen Klopp. So I think maybe he knows the wrath could come and doesn't want to deal with that.
1-0 first leg at home, you don't do it. Maybe like 5-0 is when you risk it.
Yeah, right? I'd say so.
I hope he didn't do it. Or if he did, he got away with it.
For his safety, yes, I hope so.
So not a great deal else happened in this game, if we're honest.
There were lots of shouts for VAR. There were a few chances for Porto here and there.
Marega missed a couple chances, right? He kind of snatched at a couple chances.
The very telling stats I would say that I pulled out of this one were Liverpool slightly dominant in terms of passes completed, 641 to 343. So not quite double, but getting close to that number. And then clearances, though, it was Liverpool with significantly more clearances, 24 to 18, which to me speaks to Porto sitting back, not being able to complete passes, so trying long balls and trying direct balls, and Liverpool just kind of getting a foot to it, getting ahead to it, getting that clearance, and then getting the ball back and reestablishing possession and sort of killing off the game and frustrating Porto.
Can we briefly talk about the Alexander-Arnold penalty shout?
Sure.
Where Alisson comes out, like punches the ball, and it hits Trent Alexander-Arnold in the arm.
Flaps at the ball.
Flaps
Punch
at the
implies like a
ball.
strong defensive action.
Yeah, I guess
this is more
actually-
like, and knocks it out of bounds.
Alexander-Arnold's motion was probably better than Alisson's.
Yeah.
It hits Alexander-Arnold in the arm
Yep.
and goes behind. There is a shout for a penalty
Yep.
kick. It seems like it was just too close to Alexander-Arnold for it to be him gaining any sort of advantage deliberately.
Yeah, I would agree.
Is that fair?
I think because even the
That
commentators
is a rule, right?
it
If it's so close that you
Yeah.
can't react, then you kind of get a pass.
I think that's the rule. I think there's a lot of things
That's
that
up to the
we would-
referee's judgment. So.
Exactly. I think people would say that's in the rules. It's probably not. It's probably a little more nuanced and a little bit more up to the referee's discretion. I think the differences here would be, one, it's such an immediate distance that I think you said this off air that if that ball had maybe bounced and hit him in the arm.
Yeah, if it had bounced 2 or 3
Yeah.
times on the way and it hits him in
Yeah.
the arm there, that's a penalty.
That's a penalty. And then if you imagine it from the other side of the goal, and if Alisson flapped at it and Trent Alexander-Arnold hit his hand and went out for a corner instead of going on frame, then it's probably going to be a penalty. Then it's probably going to be a red card, honestly. But here, because the ball's kind of already going out of bounds, it's going away from goal. It's not like there was a Porto player waiting to pounce and put it on frame. And because of how close he was, I think it was correctly not given as a penalty. Even I think the VAR people did look at it. The referee did not go over and take a
Porto
look.
players desperately tried, right? Didn't
They did, and the official did a good job of telling. I think he held a player's face and was like, no.
It was a
Just calm it
Tavio,
down.
number 25. I remember the referee gave him a very patronising double pat on the cheek.
And
or a
because-
pat on
yeah.
each side of the cheek.
And because Soccer Way is great for this, Antonio Mateu, Spanish referee, is who did the face patting, the face touching. And on a couple occasions, I think at one point a player tried to grab him and he put an elbow up, do not touch me, or there will be cards and elbows in your face.
I'm very interested in this thing of when referees are listening to the VAR
Yeah.
in their ear. I'm really annoyed when players are distracting them because obviously he's trying to listen and make the decision. Anything you say is not helpful, right? It's just going to annoy him. You're going to have a literal cacophony where the ref's hearing one thing and trying to hear you. I really feel like maybe there should start being cards for talking to the ref while he's listening to the VAR.
Yes, and I also think...
Or referees allowed to free swing at you.
And I agree. That's fine, too. elbow to the jugular, as we said. But it's also... You're absolutely right, though, because I think about it, and to me, it's just oh, no, they're yelling at him, but he's focused on the person in his ear, so he's just tuning them out. That's probably easy. But you're absolutely right that if you have a bunch of people screaming at you, there would be that inclination to squint your eyes and try to shut them out or look away. But then... You literally in front of a televised audience look weak. You look I can't handle the stress. I can't handle the pressure. And referees can't afford to do that. So you have to have this kind of stoic facial expression while you're trying to listen and then simultaneously respond to people. Yeah, back away.
I think the stoic face is the best of a bad situation, right? So I think that's what referees have landed on to just get through it and look in control when they are in control.
And keeping in mind that it was only a few years ago, to me it was only a few years ago, it was probably 9, and it just seems like it was only a few years ago that we had the magic, the spray come out so you could mark off 10 yards, you can mark off where the free kick is being taken. I'm looking forward to the future where the referee can pull the inflatable life jacket thing and suddenly a 5-yard barrier just comes out and no one can get near him. And then that's all you need. That's all you need.
He's in his fortress of solitude for VAR.
Yeah, exactly. A little tent pops out and he just stays inside of it till he's ready to make his decision. And then he emerges.
Speaking of making decisions.
Like a groundhog.
Today's sponsor, SeatGeek, is the right choice when you're making decisions about tickets.
You are correct, my friend. We love SeatGeek. We appreciate all that they do. We especially appreciate that they make buying and selling tickets very, very easy. I've talked about it before, but you don't have to go to disreputable internet vendors in the disreputable corner of the internet. Instead, you can do it with guaranteed safety, knowing that your purchase will be there. Your tickets will be ready for you when you go to collect them.
So the ticket industry hasn't changed in a long time. There are a bunch of big companies who've been around forever. They rhyme with Schmickitschmaster. I don't know their full title, but they don't really care about making the experience easier for the customer. SeatGeek makes it easier.
Yes, and I've been talking to many people about how much I enjoy Audi Field, how I think it was well built, not necessarily for a television audience, but I like how they've gone the vertical route of basically making it as close to the action as you can be, even if you're high up in the stands.
Yep.
And I've been encouraging people to go to a game or attend a U.S. national team game that will be happening in June.
Oh, yes.
We'll be talking about that certainly more for a variety of reasons as we get closer to the date.
Yes.
But I've been encouraging people to check out Audi Field, and then I've been kind of helpfully being and SeatGeek's really good if you want to try to find some good tickets. And they're good because you've got the color-coordinated system.
Yep.
Green means good. Red means not good.
Yeah.
Yellow means where did you get those tickets at? To butcher a Mitch Hedberg joke.
It's funny because yellow's the correct banana.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, red means you've got too much money, but if you really want to go ahead with it, SeatGeek could be like, all right, but it's not on us.
Exactly.
We warned you.
Exactly.
Go for the green.
The Avail reunion show, maybe you can get, I'm going to assume they're red tickets because it sold out so quickly.
Oh, that's a big, would that be, for people outside of Richmond, would they know what we're talking about?
If they were into punk, probably.
Did Avail have a national presence?
If they were into punk.
So I wasn't even I mean, I wasn't around, but so many people are talking about this Richmond punk reunion thing.
Yep. Yeah. There you go. Avail, I'm sure you could find tickets, even if they're, I think, concerned about internet ticket purchasing. There were some questions there, yeah.
Well, I have the SeatGeek app on my phone, so I can vouch for it. It's the easiest way to shop for tickets. If listeners want to shop for tickets, they can, of course, say it with me, listeners, get $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Here's what you do. You download the app, of course. You go to the settings tab. You enter the promo code TSS. TSS for $10 off your first purchase.
And as we've said before, you can also, if you don't want to get the app, if you're like a desktop person, you like using your laptop, you can obviously use your laptop. Just go to the website, put in your event, use that promo code, get those $10 off. So remember, that's promo code TSS for $10 off your first purchase.
We have the meats.
You nailed it, Daryl. You nailed it.
We also have listener questions today. We have 2 listener questions we're going to answer. Basically, we have so many listener questions. We're going to try and sneak some into various shows so that we can answer them. You ready for this first one, Taylor?
Let's do it.
Don't react violently when I ask this question.
No promises.
It's from Michael Gin. Michael Gin asks, why is headbutting seemingly such a common thing in soccer? For the life of me, Michael says, I cannot remember a single time when I got angry at someone and my first impulse was to go for the headbutt.
I was going to headbutt the table for dramatic purposes, and then I realized how hard this table is.
Yeah,
it wouldn't feel great.
You know you made it, right?
And I also know that knowing my awkwardness in trying to be funny, I would like knock over the mic and somehow destroy the mixing board, and then everything would be ruined. So I'm glad I didn't do that.
So why isn't it why don't players go for the punch first? Why is it headbutts in soccer?
I think because the punch is so obvious that any hands to the face is generally going to be a red card unless you're Fernandinho and you know how to hide it. But I think a punch right away, it's going to get you a red card. A hands to the face, a hands to the throat, a hands to anything is going to get you a red card. There's a law, right? In the soccer law, it's the striking. Yeah. But I think it's because with a headbutt, you can kind of get in close and talk trash, and it can be a little bit of a gray area. Now, VAR sort of limiting that, although, as Ryan and Bailey and I talked about, Kyle Walker's incident was VAR'd, and they allowed no card, so that's confusing. But I think that's it, is that you can get in close, you can have that conversation, but I think it's also a way... You can have that conversation, but I think it's also a way to try to incite a headbutt from the other person.
That's it, right? You can't throw half a punch and hope the other person punches you back. But you can lean in with your head and hope the other person makes the terrible mistake of leaning their head in too aggressively, and then they're getting sent off for a headbutt.
Yeah, because I think I'm correct in saying that technically, if I throw in the real world, not in a soccer world, if I fake throwing a punch at you, that's technically assault because my actions have impacted you as a person, and then if I actually land it, then there's battery. Could be wrong.
Okay,
don't quote me on that one, legal scholars. But I think similarly, if I go to pretend to throw a punch and I make it clear that I was pretending to throw a punch, I think I can still get that red card for violent conduct because I'm showing violence there. Whereas a headbutt, you could make the argument, or getting in close, head to head, you could say no, I'm just it's what happens. You go chest to chest, you get animated in the moment, and then you're trying to incite that level of headbutt back, which is why Kyle Walker was doubly confusing to me because he's the one who then goes for the contact and it doesn't quite come off.
So that's why headbutting is more common in soccer, is because of that head-to-head moment where they're both trying to tempt each other into doing it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say is because there are other things that people will do to try to incite violence back. And I think one of those things used to be not very common, but one thing can be spitting, for example. If you want to try to provoke a strong reaction, spitting will do that. But I think it's
also hard to see from a distance for the referee, right? So that's how you used to get away with it, but now there's video.
There is, and it's just also so vile and looked down upon that I feel like you would almost be forgiven for punching somebody faster than you would be for spitting on somebody. Yeah. So I think, again, there's that stigma to it, whereas head to head, you're just being macho and doing whatever you do.
Yeah.
I can say that I have never done that because it has never made sense to me to do that.
But part of it's posturing like stags, right?
Yeah. Hold me back.
Yeah.
Is definitely what
Someone
it is.
Please hold me back.
Yeah, exactly. I'm desperately hoping for someone to hold me back. So Michael, we hope that answers your question. One more question comes from Ryan Downey, who asks, what are some of the stereotypes, good or bad, of the big 4 or 5 European leagues?
Okay, so
I'm
going to
start with the Polish league.
I'm going to preface this hard by saying these are the perceived stereotypes.
Yep.
this is not what we necessarily think.
No, and I would say even it's kind of a harder question to answer now than maybe it was like 5 years ago. And I don't know if that's because like we have more knowledge and there's more visibility of a lot of different leagues. But I think a lot of the stereotypes that come immediately to mind are ones that you would probably look back to like the mid-2000s as your standard examples of. Does that make sense to you?
Maybe even earlier. Yeah. I think maybe just because I'm a little older, some of my stereotypes come from the 90s.
Yeah. Like, for example, for me, Germany, it's very divided in half. I'm just kidding. That's an East-West joke for you. No, I would say...
You mean it's Bayern Munich and everybody else?
Exactly. Actually, that's kind of what I have. And that really is, like, Germany, I think, is one of the hardest to classify. My stereotype would be it's Bayern Munich and then equality plus youth. That's what I've got for Germany.
I think a good stereotype for Germany is physical but tactical.
Yeah.
It's definitely like where a lot of the pressing stuff came from earlier. I think of like Klopp, for example, and think of what RB Leipzig are doing. I think there's been like the most sort of high energy tactical innovations in Germany, and American youngsters is the other thing I think of now.
But that's what I mean when I say youth. I mean that you have young Americans playing there. Yeah. You have lots of other young nationalities, including young Germans. We talk about Kai Havertz all the time. Yeah. But I also mean youth in terms of... And I also mean, I think we had a scouting report from him that won't be on today's show. We'll be on tomorrow's probably. But I also mean youth in terms of coaching. That's where you hear of Julian Nagelsmann, Domenico Tedesco, even Jurgen Klopp. Like, you get younger coaches trying different things. And I think it's balanced out by the sort of the like 50% ownership and a lot of the kind of coverage of how
50 plus 1,
excuse me, but a lot of how like different clubs do different things and they're all well attended and it's a very vocal fan base. Yeah. And it kind of gives you this like everybody's into it and everybody's up for it, and then Bayern Munich win the league.
How about England? I bet the stereotype from other people from England for a long time was physical, long ball, terrible soccer. Passion, yeah, that's definitely it. But I think that's probably changed in the last few years because of like Guardiola's there, Klopp's there. Essentially, they've imported a high level of coach. So now there's a level of tactical sophistication in the Premier League from the imported coaches, right? It's not Alan Pardew and Sam Allardyce's world anymore.
I don't mean to like go away from England to talk about England, but I'll say that like I think when my wife, then girlfriend, asked me about the differences in the leagues.
Your wife asked you and then your girlfriend asked you?
Yeah, it's weird, right? I said my wife, then girlfriend.
I see.
Get out of here. Wife hyphen then hyphen girlfriend. Get out of here, Daryl. Quit trying to sow discord. I think the way I explained it was Spain is technical, Italy is tactical, England has passion.
There we go. That's the stereotype.
That's basically the stereotype. But I would think if you wanted like a slightly more nuanced stereotype, instead of passion, I would say physicality and speed is I think what you think of when you think of like traditional England. Traditional England, you think of breaking legs. But more so recently, I would think of like it's physical, it's competitive, there's lots of speed, there's lots of pace, and that's kind of what I would go to with England, plus some rain thrown in.
Some rain, yeah. Italy, you said tactical. I bet a lot of people stereotype of Italy. I'm almost scared to say it because I think it's not as true now as it was in the past, but defensive. Home of Catenaccio and all that sort of stuff. I don't necessarily think of that, but I don't watch enough to really have a hard opinion either way.
Yeah, but I think it's, again, that's one that goes back decades of this idea of Italy. It's all about tactics and Catenaccio and, ultra defensive. But then you still get, like, Sarri ball and you still get wrinkles thrown in there and Max Allegri doing different things or trying different things at Juve because he can, because they win. So I think, like, you get that sort of nuance to it, and you look at a lot of the, like, famous coaches that we all know, Carlo Ancelotti, Claudio Ranieri. You think of those guys, they're Italian. So I think it all kind of blends together, and Maurizio Sarri to some extent
and
as
at
well.
risk of offending people, I think a stereotype of Italian soccer could be match fixing.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's the Calciopoli scandal with Juventus. I mean, they were literally relegated for it. Have you ever read the book, The Miracle of Castel di Sangro? I believe it is.
I've read half of it twice.
Okay, if you'd read the second half of it...
I still have your copy.
There's some match fixing towards the end. Like
Ed D. Horatius sent us copies, I believe.
Yes, so I'd read it a while back, but there's some match fixing towards the end, and the players kind of explain it in a way of like, this is just kind of how it is.
I mean,
so it's a stereotype based on something that has happened.
There it is. I'll put it this way, that like if you said like, there's been a major match fixing scandal in the Premier League, I'd be like, wow, I can't believe that. In Bundesliga, the same thing. If you said Serie A, I'd be like, yeah, okay. And you're right, it's probably unfair, but that is what stands out because of Calciopoli.
Right? Okay, what else? Spain, you mentioned, is technical. I think that's a really good summary.
I think I read recently that Spain, like as a whole, has the fewest completed crosses of any of Europe's like top 4 or 5 leagues.
Because they don't attempt as many?
Because it's all about like building on the floor and keeping the ball low and moving it around and finding space.
Nice. All right, well, I'm going to throw one extra at you. Not necessarily a top 4 or 5 league. The Netherlands.
Attacking.
at least in England, is known for, attacking, but also bad defending.
Yep.
In a way that so many forwards from the Netherlands get transfers to the Premier League after scoring 30-odd goals and then score far fewer goals in England. And Josie Altidore is maybe the big example.
I wasn't going to go there, but that's fair.
I wanted to use an example that everybody knew.
And I would say that's kind of France as well. I think it's like PSG plus attack is what I would say.
That's a whole new thing for France, right? It's the last 10 years. PSG suddenly become this thing that's turned French football upside down.
Yeah. But I mean, kind of. I mean, they have in terms of like the balance of power has gone to Paris. But again, Ryan Bailey and I talked about it this weekend that, I mean, before PSG, there was Lyon and they won, seven or 8 league titles in a row.
Yeah.
And so there has always been like dominance in France and it's usually been very attacking dominance.
Yeah.
And then I think of like if you're buying a defender from Ligue 1, you might have moments of hesitation. Not saying always, but again, we're speaking in generalities, in stereotypes.
Mangala did not play for Man City today.
He did not.
As an example.
He did not.
All right. That's definitely enough stereotyping.
I'd say so.
I've been massively uncomfortable doing that whole thing. I think given that, we did quite well.
Yeah, I hope so. And then in England, it's all beers and cigarettes as well.
There it is.
That. Yes.
Fewer cigarettes now since a lot of public smoking laws.
Yeah, there's probably that.
Fast. Yeah.
If you'd probably like a lot more smoking elsewhere, actually.
If you'd like to ask us a question, it's totalsoccershow.com/questions. There's a form you can fill out. If you subscribe to TSS at $10 a month or more, we are guaranteeing to answer one of your questions per month.
And I ask you this every time, and I think it kind of annoys you every time, so I'm going to do it again. So that's at $10 level, Daryl. What happens at $5 level?
Oh, you get to join the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network.
There we go.
Where we assign you a young player, and we invite you to send reports about that young player so that we can keep track of all the up-and-coming youngsters on the Total Soccer Show in the Scouting Network.
And apparently the printer is excited to join the Scouting Network.
Of course. It's probably too old at this point.
We haven't used it in like a month, but apparently it chimes in.
I think it's like 25 years old.
First report today comes from Dustin Ward, scouting Brendan Aronson, the 18-year-old. There we go, 18-year-old American midfielder for the Philadelphia Union.
Not in the Bobby Brown sense. He's a new addition to the Scouting Network.
In what was billed as a battle of young midfielders, Aronson versus Pomykal, both FC Dallas and the Philadelphia Union pressed high, and both teams struggled with possession as a result. Nevertheless, Aaron's defensive work rate was very good, and he was able to generate a few opportunities of his own.
Thank you, Dustin, for that report. I can confirm, I watched this game. I was mostly excited about Pomykal, then I realised Aronson was on the other side. There was a moment where Pomykal was on the run and got stripped of the ball, and I was like, no! Then I realised who it was. I was like, yeah! This was a great game for Play Your Kids.
I like how emotional you were watching Philadelphia play Dallas.
Yeah, it was weird. All right, Russell Findlay is scouting Eric Palmer-Brown, EPB, the 21-year-old American centre-back on loan at NAC Breda from Manchester City. I forgot he was at Manchester City.
Dude, I'm glad you said that. I had the exact same reaction when I saw this report.
Russell says, according to Brian Schroeter, EPB is the most improved US player in 2019. He's become a consistent starter on a bad team, but he's been putting in solid performances every week. Schroeter also believes EPB has raised his stock enough to move to a better team next year.
I smell League 1 calling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And maybe go to Nantes and see if an American defender can do well there. Alex Tremble scouting Gianluca Busio, 16-year-old American midfielder for Sporting KC. Busio scored another goal against FC Cincinnati this time for his second MLS game in a row. It was an opportunistic finish from a tight angle after a miscommunication between the Cincinnati goalkeeper and center back left Busio with an open goal. That's always nice.
Yep.
Busio's goal makes him the youngest ever in MLS history to score in back-to-back games.
Not too shabby.
I would say not.
I watched this game as well. I watched bits of it because starting in midfield for Sporting KC, they were rotating after the Monterrey game, was Ilya Sanchez in the number 6 role, same old. To his left, Gideon Zelalem. To his right, Gianluca Busio.
Decent.
And so...
Well, actually, I should say this. Theoretically decent. I mean more so decent from an exciting young American standpoint.
Yes. I raised that to say, I believe we have had multiple people scouting Zelalem over the years. No one sent us regular reports. Unless there's one that I don't know about, we haven't got a report about Zelalem re-debuting for Sporting KC.
To be fair, I think because of his injuries and sort of his various spells on loan,
the
only way you could have gotten updates from Gideon Zelalem was from getting them from Gideon Zelalem. So I think maybe now that he's playing in the U.S., he's with Sporting KC, he's with Swope Park Rangers on occasion, maybe it'll be easier.
Well, let me put this out there. If you have at some point been assigned to scout Gideon Zelalem and you want to pick it up and start doing it again, because he's going to play on and off for Sporting KC or for Swope Park, right? Email me and say, I'm still scouting Gideon Zelalem. If you don't hear anything within the next few days, I'm going to reassign Zelalem because it's a guy I want to hear about, because he actually had an interesting game where he made himself available all the time and his teammates did not pass to him. It was weird.
Eee.
There's a video out there of him constantly having his arms in the air, like, why'd you play that ball? You gave it away. I was open.
It's anti-Arsenal bias right there.
Yeah, that must be across the entire Sporting KC team.
Of course.
Okay, sorry, I took
They're
us off
all
track.
Spurs fans.
Okay, Drew Trammell, a.k.a. Dreek van Truens, who's one of the early donors.
Way
We
back
gave him
when.
a Dutch name. Drew is scouting Martin Odegaard, the 20-year-old Norwegian attacker on loan at Vitesse.
Before you read this report,
Yes?
if you had to guess, how many appearances has Martin Odegaard made for Norway?
For Norway, the national
Yes,
team?
he is 20 years old.
25.
Okay. Go ahead and read the report.
It's going to be in there? Mm-hmm. Okay. Drew says, Odegaard didn't have much of the ball in the 2-1 loss to Spain in Norway's Euro qualifier, but he did have a few good moments, including dribbling past Sergio Ramos. After that, in his 97th appearance for Norway, that's not accurate.
That's what Drew emailed in.
Have we fact-checked that?
I have not fact-checked that.
He's got to be joking. This is not possible.
I mean, I don't know. He may have played in every single game possible. Maybe that means including Norway like youth national teams.
Yeah, maybe you played U21s or U18s. Or so. Are you looking it up now?
I'm looking it up now while you read the
We can't be
report.
putting facts out there that are incorrect.
I mean, we'll find out in a moment.
Then they're not facts. Okay, while you look that up, I'll just read the
Facts are
rest.
meaningless anymore.
Yeah, apparently. I'll read the rest of the report. Odegaard provided the assist from a corner on the stoppage time equaliser against Nordic rival Sweden in the 3-3 draw. He then had a lovely half-roulette nutmeg to leave two defenders in his wake in Vitesse's 2-2 draw with RZ. Yeah, he's killing it in the Eredivisie.
Drew, I have Wikipedia saying 16 appearances. So you've been fact-checked, sir. You've been fact-checked. We'll see if he goes for all competitions. Even then, I think that number might be inflated.
He's exaggerating for effect, maybe.
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 You never know. Brian Gardner scouting Moussa Sissoko, the 19-year-old Italian striker for Juventus.
Been in the news lately?
Yes, Gazzetta dello Sport is reporting that Juventus, Ken, and his agent Mino Raiola are in negotiations which would see Ken stay at Juventus through 2024. To further prove his worth, Ken scored in the 84th minute to seal a 2-1 win for Juve over AC Milan. Of note was that Leonardo Bonucci was among the first to congratulate Ken after his goal. He was also amongst the last to walk away from Moussa Sissoko after the goal. I think he, as I said on the weekend review, again, he
knows the optics.
Yeah, he was definitely intent on showing, like, we're all best friends.
I'd love to see the footage of...
Please stop sending me mean messages, even though they're kind of deserved.
Did he just sprint from centre back?
Definitely deserved. Yes, he did.
To get there first.
Yes, he did.
The fastest he ran all game.
Pretty much.
Russell Varner is scouting Alex Mendez, the 18-year-old American midfielder for SC Freiburg. Russell says, sound the sirens. Oh, we don't have any, but we would. Honestly, if we had some, we would. Woo-hoo. We have an Alex Mendez goal alert. Mendez scored not just once, but twice in the Freiburg U19's 3-3 draw with Hoffenheim on Saturday, marking his first goals in Germany. The first was a 35-yard, insert Dr. Evil voice, laser, and the second was from an audacious angle. That wasn't a great Dr. Evil.
It was like Dr. Evil with laryngitis, I think. The early stages of laryngitis.
I've seen both his goals. The 35-yard one is incredible.
Is it a laser?
It's a laser.
Is it a frickin' laser?
It's a frickin' laser beam.
There we go. So thank you to Russell, Brian, Dreek von Truens, Alex, Russell, and Dustin for those reports.
Thank you to everybody who subscribes to the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. If you'd like to join up and support the show, it's totalsoccershow.com/join. If you want to support the show but you don't want to do any scouting, that's fine too.
Yep.
There's an option to be a silent scout, where essentially you just contribute to the show but you don't have to do anything.
Perfect.
But we have to do stuff.
That's
I guess
the dream.
Once you contribute, it means we have to keep doing stuff.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
true.
Which is good. We like doing stuff.
That's the dream too.
We like doing stuff. We'll be doing stuff tomorrow when we do the other Champions League quarterfinal
I guess
games.
that I'm going to be crying.
Yeah, you're not feeling good about United Barcelona. Where is it? Is it Old Trafford or Camp Nou?
I believe it's at Old Trafford.
Okay, so there's that. And the other game is, of course, Juve versus Ajax.
Yeah.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. All right, so we'll be back on Wednesday to review both those games. Also, if you're a Richmond Kickers fan, either in Richmond or maybe you've just got into the team from afar, the latest episode of Richmond Kickers Weekly will be coming out in the next 24 hours or so.
These are facts.
These are facts. I guarantee there won't be a single goal from that game that we forget to talk about.
There we go.
Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.